Human Music Podcast.
It's like, I feel also too easy to get caught up in the technical shit, so I don't ever like only giving people technical examples or like exact dB values or anything like that. But as long as you can articulate in your head why this one has some characteristic this main one doesn't, then it fills it out. It serves the purpose.
It's so interesting to see how many people, once they hear a concept, like try to make it gospel. You know, like this is now dogma of, oh no, but I had to kick it 8, so it's good, right? And it's like, okay, yeah, technically it was hitting that arbitrary rule of thumb level on your master meter, but with what frequencies and how?
Totally.
Like, was it hitting transient heavy? Or was it like the flop at the end of your kick that was still 8? Was it, you know, is it hitting 8 and still full of weird, muddy, low mid frequencies that you hella don't need right here?
Mm-hmm.
You know, because like that, I'll like get a kick sample. I will carve insane amounts of low mid out of it. And then it'll be like that thing that was at my, you know, target level or whatever is now like 5-6 decibels quieter than that.
But it
And
sounds
seems just as loud. And
Yep.
then you turn it way back up, like, okay, this is hitting a completely different way now that I carved the space I needed out of it. So it's like, yeah, okay, that's like one, you know, that's like, yeah, okay, man, your oven needs to be at 350 for this recipe, but like you still gotta like put the ratios of all the baking ingredients together.
right.
Definitely. Yeah, it's so funny. Y'all like frequently hear a song where like the kick is like way too quiet or the snare is like way too quiet. And they're like, no, they hit on the meter at the same level. And it's like, well, honestly, you listening to this, do they seem the same loudness to you? Well, no. It's like, you still got to use your ears. Like, the thing is, like, there's so many times where, like, my snare will be 2 dBs louder than the kick or, like, 4 dBs louder than the kick. And you do some things to help resolve that difference. Maybe you compress, like, just the initial transient of the sound because you know that that's way louder than the rest. But, like, if you have a super transient heavy snare and then a kick with like not a whole bunch of like top end like click and knock, and like you're trying to make those two balance, like one's just going to end up quieter than the other. So it's a twofold issue. A, you chose the wrong samples. If your kick and snare don't have similar bodies, shapes, transient responses, and you're trying to force those two to sound good together, you're going to have a really tough time. And then B, if you have a kick and snare that sound really good together, but like your snare has just like a really sharp like hi-hat layer or something in the sample, and it's peaking way above like your kick, you need to do something to make them level. You can't just like look at your meter and be like, even though my snare sounds like it's barely even there, I'm just going to leave it because that's what the meters say. You still have to reference your ears, which is funny too. Going back to what you were talking about of like rules that you hear that become dogma in your workflow, even though you don't really know how they work. Like there was a period of time in the like 2 to 4 year span of me producing in which I realized that taking somewhere between 2 and 500 hertz, usually around 400 hertz, taking that out of a sound always made it sound more clear and defined. I'm taking the mud out of this sound. Good. Why don't I do that on all of them? Right? And then you get to the end and you're referencing against another track and you're like, what, where did all the power go? Where did like it's not like there's sub, but there's still no weight. And it's just one of those things where like if you treat a rule that you see someone else doing as gospel without truly understanding why that was happening on that particular element in the first place, all you're going to do is fuck up your mix. Like there are so many times where I have watched a video of someone doing thing X, or, you know, using concept Y, with the understanding of how all this stuff works now, and being like, oh, okay, they were doing that because this other element is like taking up that frequency range and it doesn't need it. It's still being filled in a different way. And it's so easy, like when you don't know all of like the conceptual like interaction between elements, to be like, this needs to happen on everything. And then you get to the end and you're like, I thought this would sound like this, but it really doesn't.
Totally.
You need to know why before you start doing it.
Concept why.
Concept why, exactly.
I like it.